There's a ton of different ideas about what the best stock is out there to buy. Here's an idea. Why don't you just try buying the best of breed in each of the 11 sectors? In this video, I'm going to chronicle the top 2 stocks to buy in each of the 11 sectors respectively. And I think this is going to put a lot of people at ease when they're looking to answer the most common question in the stock market. What stock should I buy? I know these stock pick videos are super popular. And I know a lot of people tune in to the top stocks to buy per month because they have a feeling that somebody on YouTube has found the next needle in a haystack out there to invest in. I contend that if you want to be a speculator, go ahead. If you want to be an investor or a participant in the stock market, why don't you look no further than the best in breed in each of the sectors? And in this video, I'm going to use the Vanguard's website to drop you into each of the sectors, and I'm going to show you how you can look at the top tier companies in each of the sectors as potential investment vehicles for yourself. I think it's going to allow a lot of new investors or existing investors to take a look at their existing portfolios and ask themselves, do they hold any of these stocks? Because I contend that it's probably one of the most obvious things for investors and some of the most obvious companies to invest in over the long term. And I feel like so often people ignore these great top tier best of breed companies for trying to search out the next best thing. So guys, without further ado, I'm going to drop you into the Vanguard's website and we're going to go through each of the top tier companies in each of the sectors. Please enjoy. All right, guys, so to demonstrate this lesson here, we're going to use the Vanguard's website. I'm at the bottom of the ETF page. These are the sectors. These are referred to as spiders or specialty ETFs. But we're going to use these ETFs to demonstrate my point on what to buy in the stock market. I think people look at it as an open landscape, and I think if you just keep it a lot more simple, it doesn't need to be difficult. I don't think we need to be looking a whole lot further than the top 2 stocks that I feel like you should look at as a primary option rather than a secondary option or not at all. So we're going to jump into Infotech. Anybody can do this for yourself. There's an underpin of a lesson here. If you guys do end up, I frequent this Vanguard website very often, but we're going to jump into the technology sector to demonstrate the top 2, Apple and Microsoft. Now these are all cap weighted. Obviously, the more the investment goes into the top holdings on down the line. Obviously, there's some other names here that can fall into the discussion. But for the sake of this video, in the technology sector, right there at the top, number 1 and 2, Apple and Microsoft. So now we'll go ahead and we'll jump into the next sector, which is financials. So all I have to do is find it here in the list, and here it is. We'll click in. We'll do the same exercise. We'll scroll to the bottom. A lot of great information on this page, guys. But here we've got the 2 top holdings, I believe, in financials. Number 1 is JP Morgan Chase, and then second on my list is Bank of America. Again, you can see the theme here, some great financial companies here, but the idea being that you're looking at the top tier companies in each of the sectors, and it's not going to be the same for everybody. But in my opinion, we're probably looking at JP Morgan and Bank of America at the top of the mountain. So let's kick on to the next sector. All right, so sector number 3 is going to be healthcare. So here we've got the healthcare ETF. So we're going to jump in here just like last time. And I expect that this is an exercise that you guys can watch me run through, and then you guys can check it out for yourself. This is really an awesome way of determining what stocks or what companies are the most widely held in each of these specialty ETFs. But number 1 on my list, obviously, so number 1 on a lot of lists is Johnson & Johnson. And then according to number 2, as far as I'm concerned, is Pfizer. Honestly, there can be some folks that can disagree with me. Perhaps Merck would be a good substitute there, and potentially even AbbVie as well in healthcare. But in healthcare, I've got Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer respectively. All right, so next on the list will be discretionary. We'll go ahead and jump into discretionary and we'll carry on the demonstration here for you guys. We'll scroll down to the bottom and I believe that, yep, Home Depot and McDonald's are showing up here in the list number 2 and 3 right behind Amazon, which Amazon really isn't one of those companies I would recommend that a new investor go to as a primary option. I'm obviously an investor in Amazon but with some really aggressive scale. I don't have a lot of money in Amazon, but I do have a little bit of exposure in Amazon. But for dividends and seeking out that established dividend growth over the long term, Home Depot and McDonald's I put right there at the top of the list. And next we'll jump into staples. As appropriate, we'll jump in here and check what comprises the staples top 10 makeup here. That's usually where I'm pulling this information from. And you guys can see here, number 1 and 2 on the list is right in line with my number 1 and number 2 if you're looking at the single stock opportunity. I own all of these. So number 1 with Procter & Gamble and number 2 Coca-Cola Company. So there you go. Look no further. You guys can see some of these awesome names behind this. Staples is a loaded category as far as I'm concerned. But certainly want to make sure that we're emphasizing that new investors are looking at the cream of the crop first before looking to supplement their portfolio with anything outside of the best of breed. All right, we're going to go ahead and jump into the most hated sector right now, which is energy. Not to leave energy out of the fray here. We're going to scroll down, and I think I've got an idea of what, number 1 and 2, again, in the sector. Number 1, ExxonMobil, and number 2 is Chevron. So, again, looking to get some nice exposure in energy, and look no further than your top 2 by market cap in the energy sector. So there they are, Exxon and Chevron, which are in line with my number 1 and 2 stocks that you should be looking at as a primary option. All right, keeping up with the theme here, we're going to jump into one of my favorite sectors, which is industrials. It's right here, the ETF. So we'll jump in there. And same thing, we're going to scroll to the bottom. There's obviously a lot of names in industrials that I like. But the theme of this is to use the sectors to identify really the best of breed, the top 10 companies within each of the sectors. That way you're really looking at the best of breed to build out your portfolio. And here, respectively, my top 2 are number 1, 3M, which is number 7 on the cap-weighted list. And then right below it is my number 2 pick, which is Caterpillar. So 3M and Caterpillar and industrials, you guys will see here I've invested in a number of these companies. I own Boeing, which is number 1, and then United Technology, which is number 4. But for the sake of these exercises, for beginning investors, I really think that looking beyond 3M and Caterpillar is only necessary once you've owned them both. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to one of the most underappreciated sectors, I think, is the materials sector ETF. So we'll click in there and we'll see if my number 1 and 2 picks actually register with the top 10 holdings. And yep, they do. Number 1 for materials from my assessment is Linde. That's number 1. And then number 2 is DuPont Dumois. So here at number 5. But some good companies here in materials, obviously. You guys can, build out your portfolio how you see fit. But honestly, looking to get the top tier companies out of each of the sectors in this example. All right, another one of my favorites here. We'll drop down to the very bottom here. This is utilities. You guys know I own this utilities ETF. Really to satisfy my utilities exposure. There's really not a lot of holdings in this ETF. I believe there's only about 68 holdings in this ETF. But if you were looking to go with the single stock opportunity, you can see here from a cap weighted basis just behind Nextera is my 2 favorites, number 1 Duke and number 3 Southern Company. So there you go. This doesn't have to be rocket science, guys. There's not a whole lot of opportunity necessity to look beyond these top tier companies. And I think a proof test for a lot of folks that are looking at this video, ask yourself, do you have direct exposure to any of these as single stocks, or at least indirect exposure to any of these companies? If the answer is no, you probably need to go back to the drawing board and make sure that your tolerance is in line with what the portfolio you've built for yourself. All right, we'll jump into one of my favorites again. Hell, these are really all my favorite sectors. I just love investing. It's a lot of fun. But we're going to jump into communication services, which is a fairly newly formulated. They pulled some of the discretionary names out and kind of rebranded this communication sector. But if we scroll to the bottom here and look for our top two picks, yep, there they are. Number one in my mind is Walt Disney Company. There it is, sits at number 7 as far as a cap-weighted rank and order structure here in the ETF, and then right above it at number 5 is Verizon. So there it is, number 5 and 7. These are the companies on my list that really are the premier players. This is just my opinion on where new investors should look to eliminate preliminary portfolio building. Look no further than the best in breed in each of the sectors. Very simple. And we'll go ahead and finish off the sector exploration here with jumping into the final sector, which is real estate. It's here second to the bottom. Again, welcome to do this on your own, but we'll jump into real estate here and we'll earmark a couple in the top 10 by cap weighted basis. We'll scroll to the bottom, and I've identified 2 out of this list here. Number 2 on the list is American Tower REIT, and then we've got number 6 on the list, which is Simon Property Group. So I know there's a lot of folks in the community that have a lot more interest in the real estate REITs. I'm not one of them. I choose my exposure by just owning this entire real estate REIT individually within my Roth. That's just how I choose to do it. I'd rather have exposure to all 185 companies rather than to try to piece together an aspect of this that's aimed at getting a little bit higher performance. But nonetheless, that rounds out the list of the top 2 in each of the sectors, guys. With that, I'll kick you back to YouTube. All right, guys, rock on. So we've come out of Vanguard. Sometimes the most obvious and best investments are the ones that are right in front of your face. They really are. These are companies that have been established. They've been well known. They've done great for shareholders over the long term. And I feel like a lot of new investors always want to think that they need to outsmart the market. The market's a lot smarter than you are, okay? And people have come and gone and tried to outsmart the market only to have failed, and then come back to traditional principles of money making and wealth building. And so the quicker you can circumvent those mistakes and just go right to the cream of the crop, the best in breed of each of the sectors, the better off you'll be. Guys, thanks for tuning into the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Leave the comments at the bottom. Share the message with anybody out there that you know may need introductory information into the stock market. Guys, thanks again for tuning into the video. And good luck in your investment future.